Good morning, everybody. This is the first in a series of podcasts. And being the first, I would like to set out how the global picture could change under President Trump's new government. Future podcasts will focus on specific issues such as financial markets, gold, the US dollar, and regional conflicts. Throughout history, it has been abnormal for the world to be ruled by a unilateral power. The collapse of the Soviet Empire in 1991 left the world with only one country capable of holding the world together from internal conflicts and wars. That was America. And so was born the world that we knew until January this year. America's global power grew from being a force for the good for the world to becoming a force for the self-interests of America. That resulted in an explosion of military bases around the world and the use of the dollar as a weapon to threaten countries that did not comply with American rules. The result was a series of conflicts and wars. These actions turned a large part of the world against America, and from that, was born the BRICS group of nations. It appears that President Trump wants to make America great again, not through wars and conquests, but by rebuilding America's economy and so making America a beacon that other countries can look up to. A primary path to remodeling America is to rebuild the country's manufacturing base rather than importing so many finished goods. For instance, the number of employees working in manufacturing today is only about 1/10 what it was in the early 1980s. The main route to achieving this objective is through tariffs and tax incentives, a subject that we will focus on in another podcast. Creating a multipolar world will be no easy task, as there are obstacles both externally and internally in America. Internally, the power, including the financial ones behind the deep state, won't give up the authority that they have wielded for over 10 years easily. And externally, President Trump has to convince a large part of the world that his vision of a unilateral world is in the best interests of all countries. His fear is that should the BRICS group of nations mature into an operating organization, including its financial unit, the new development bank, then America's hegemony and the authority of its currency would be at risk. He has three basic options: either to defuse the growth of BRICS by adopting divisive tactics, such as by breaking the strategic alliance between Russia and China, or by going to war, which he does not want, or by merging the BRICS multilateral world into America's failing empire. The ultimate objective will be to agree spheres of interests, itself a tricky proposition. At first, he will try to wrest Russia away from China, but that will fail. A primary subject for negotiation between America on the one side and Russia and China on the other, is that the BRICS leaders do not want to be subjected to a currency that loses its value every year. For instance, a 1980 dollar is worth just 23 cents today. Will gold then become the foundation of a new monetary system? China and Russia have infinitely more gold than they report. This is a subject that we will discuss in a future podcast. Whilst President Trump has promised to achieve a peaceful settlement to Russia's war with Ukraine, though in truth it is a war between NATO and Russia, achieving a peaceful outcome will not be easy given Russia's non-negotiable demands. The basis for any discussion between the two presidents will not be just about Ukraine, but by the future security of Eurasia, from which will emerge the future of Ukraine. And that is a subject we'll discuss in another podcast. No less serious are the developments in the Middle East. The president's remarks that we will take over Gaza has left the Arab world in disarray. But what was really behind those comments? A more subtle interpretation can be made. Again, a subject for a future discussion. Finally, in our first podcast, what does all this mean for financial markets? Briefly, as time is running out. We expect that the US economy will slow in the first 6 to 9 months of this year, causing a sharp correction in US and global equity markets. The US dollar will start falling into a multi-year correction. Gold seems to have been overbought in the short term. By September this year, Trump will be able to pass his tax bills, introduce his deregulation moves, and the Fed will start cutting rates on the back of a weakening economy and rising unemployment. These moves will lay the foundation for a solid but inflationary-driven recovery into late 2027 or into early 2028, resulting in powerful moves in global equities and metals, but rising long-term bond yields. So that's it for our first podcast, and hope to see you next time.